Hello and welcome to a special episode of Reading the Movie. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and the reason this is a special episode is because I'm not going to be talking about a movie and the source material that it's based on, but a TV show and the source material that it's based on. And that TV show is iZombie. Uh, it's a show on the CW. They've had 2 seasons so far, and personally, I can't wait for season 3. Um, but the show was brought to television by Rob Thomas, who is the gentleman who gave us Veronica Mars. And it's based on the DC Vertigo comic, iZombie, by Chris Robertson and Mike Allred. And until yesterday, I had never read the comic book. I watched the show because of Rob Thomas. I loved Veronica Mars. I wanted to see this new show that he was bringing to TV. I knew that it was based on a comic book, um, but I had faith in Rob Thomas to entertain me. And entertain me he did. So the TV show, what we have is uh, a young woman by the name of Olivia Moore. She's played by Rose McIver. And she is an intern at a hospital. She's engaged to Major Lillywhite, who's a social worker, and she has family and friends, and she's living a great life. And she goes to this party on a boat, and things go horribly wrong, and she ends up being a zombie. So she breaks off her engagement, kind of closes herself off from her family and friends, quits her job, becomes an assistant medical examiner, which gives her access to brains. In this world, as long as a zombie has regular access to brains, they pretty much stay the same, who they were when they were alive. They're still really pale, with pale hair. As you can see, a lot of the zombies in this show have their hair dyed and use makeup, get spray tans, whatever, to look alive. Our lovely Olivia Moore doesn't bother with that. But one of the side effects of eating brains is that the zombie takes on personality quirks of the person whose brain they ate, as well as getting flashes of that person's memory. Now, Liv, oh yeah, the names. So our main character is a zombie, and her name is Liv Moore. And her ex-fiance is a social worker goody two-shoes. His name is Major Lillywhite. It's a little fun that the show's creators had with the names. So Liv works with the medical examiner and eats the brains of basically murder victims, accidents victims, and she uses the flashes of memory that she gets to help solve crimes. She works with a detective named Clive Babineau, who was played by Malcolm Goodwin. I just love that name, Babineau. She's told Babineau that she's a psychic, and that's how she gets these flashes, these visions, and she helps him solve the crimes. And then the medical examiner is Ravi, and I know I'm just going to butcher the actor's name, and I apologize in advance. It is Rahul Kohli. I'm not sure if it's that simple. I kind of doubt it. But that's Ravi, played by Rahul Kohli. That's what I'm going to say. So these are your main players. And Blaine, the best character on the show, played by David Anders. Just amazing. He is this guy. He was a low-level drug dealer before he became a zombie, and he's got big plans. He turns a bunch of rich people into zombies and then sells them brain meal plans, like $20,000 a month for a steady supply of brains for these rich folks to eat. So he's sort of the antagonist in the first season. But there's so much more going on. There's so much going on in this show. So many other characters. I think the show is a lot of fun. All we have in this world in the show is zombies. And there's basically a different mystery every week. But that's not even the biggest part of the show. It's the characters. It's the overarching story. And the mysteries are just kind of what bring you in every week. And they're fun. Some of them, well, some of them are fun. Some of them are kind of tragic. It's always interesting to see Liv take on the quirks of the people whose brains she's eaten. Um, and sometimes the episodes are very lighthearted. Sometimes they're very dark. Sometimes they're a weird mix that seems to work. You'll have these wonderful moments, and it makes those tragic moments just seem that much worse. Um, it's a really great show, but quite different than the comic book. So, uh, recently I picked up Volume 1, which is called Dead to the World, and Volume 2, which is You Vampire. And as I said, written by Chris Robertson with artwork by Michael Allred, and they're published by DC's Vertigo imprint. So right off the bat, different names. Our main character is Gwen Dillon, and she was an art student before she became a zombie. Now she's basically a grave digger. Again, gives her access to brains. Now you do still have the flashes of memory from the people whose brains she ate. She doesn't take on their personality quirks. And sometimes it's almost as if they're talking to her in her head, these people whose brains she's eaten. So that's Gwen instead of Liv Moore. You have Gwen Dillon. And she paints. Whenever she eats somebody's brain, she paints some of the things that she sees. Because, again, she was an artist. Now, this world is much more supernatural. I mentioned there's only zombies in the TV show. Well, Gwen's best friend is a ghost named Ellie. She died quite some time ago, and the closest comparison I can come up with is, just to give you an idea of the kind of character Ellie is, would be Gwen Stacy when she was first introduced in the Spider-Man comic books. Kind of this swinging chick. Especially clothing-wise. The look of Ellie, to me, very much Gwen Stacy. And in this mythology, the mythology of iZombie, the comic book, ghosts can only go to places they remember. And the story takes place in Eugene, Oregon, and Ellie never really went any place outside of Eugene. So she's trapped in Eugene. I'm going to just say Eugene over and over, apparently. But Ellie's trapped. She can't go out into the wide world. So you've got the zombie Gwen, the ghost Ellie. Then you have their friend Scott, who is a were-terrier. Not a werewolf, a were-terrier. And as it is in the oldest mythologies, or maybe just universal movie mythologies, it's the full moon that triggers Scott's transformation. So he's normal most of the time, and then on the full moon he turns into a terrier man. So you have all this stuff, obviously ghosts, zombies, lycanthropes. There's a group of monster hunters that have been around for centuries. We have vampires, and there's John Amon, who is a mummy who's been around for centuries. And he's that sort of middle ground. Maybe he's a good guy, maybe he's not such a good guy. We don't know. He brings a lot of information to the story. And again, I've only read the first two. There are quite a few more volumes out there, so I'm sure they're going to expand even more. So some of this information that I have may be a little outdated. I'm not going to go into the stories because this isn't really a review. I'm just doing the compare and contrast thing. But Gwen does eat the brains, and if the person whose brain she ate has any unfinished business or was murdered or something, she tries to take care of that, because they're basically in her head urging her to take care of it. If it's a murder victim, let's say, they're urging her to bring their murderer to justice, or if they don't know who it is, to figure out who killed them. In the second storyline, it's not a murder victim whose brain she eats, but it is someone with unfinished business, and they're in her head pushing her to go tell somebody this. I need to communicate to somebody. Um, so that's, you kind of have that from the show. Again, in the TV show, she's solving the mysteries with Babineau. In this, she's taking care of any unfinished business that the person had. But so much more mythology in the comic books, and there are some nice little sort of one-shot tales. We get the origin of Scott the Were Terrier, and some insight into that character. We get to learn there's Ellie, the ghost, has her own issue, and I don't mean issues like she needs to talk it out. I mean issue, like an issue of a comic book. Um, so it's nice that we're seeing not just Gwen and her thing, but we're getting some insight into the other characters. They get the spotlight every once in a while, and I assume that's a trend that will continue. I'm definitely going to be picking up the rest of these trades so I can read the continuing story, and I can't wait for season 3 of the TV show. So basically, there you have it. iZombie the TV show, iZombie the comic book. Both incredibly entertaining, both very different one from the other. There's some of that wonderful Michael Allred artwork. If you've seen the show, you've seen his artwork. It's in the opening credits, and every time they come back from commercial, the show starts with what looks like a comic book panel that fades into the show, and that's Michael Allred's work as well. I've always been a fan of his work since Mad Men. I'm flipping through here. There was a picture I was going to show just because it was like really awesome, and now I can't find it. But really a fantastic artist, and his art fits with Chris Robertson's writing style very well. Just lovely artwork. I'm not as familiar with Mr. Robertson's work, and if I didn't know that he was the writer on this book, I would have thought it was Michael Allred. It has that same flavor, and the words and the pictures go so well together, to put it very simply. Beautifully written, beautifully told, and they're beautiful to look at. So, and you know, a lot of the people on the show are beautiful to look at too. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's it. Excuse me. I will have a link up here somewhere with one of the trailers or something for the TV show, so you can check that out. And then I'll have links in the description below for maybe a volume or 2 of the comic book, and season 1 of the TV show. Season 2 is not available yet, I don't believe, on DVD. So that'll be in the description below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, if you just want to chat about iZombie, that's what the comments are for. Jump in there. We try to keep the comments spoiler free. If you actually, that's completely untrue. The comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. I don't know why I said we try to keep them spoiler free. Just post a spoiler warning if you're going to spoil anything. If you don't, if there are any comments that I think are spoilery and there's no spoiler warning, I'm just going to delete them, because we don't want to spoil things for people. We want them to enjoy themselves. And all right, so comments, questions, corrections in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe so that I can keep doing this, I guess. Not that I make any money off of it, but that's it for this episode of Reading the Movie, the TV edition. I'm Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.